Welcome everybody. Welcome Ishtar to another Ishtar channel podcast. Another scintillating conversation. I love my conversations with you. So we're going to explore today the topic and some of the, differences between religion versus spirituality. And you've been teaching within the realm of spirituality for 25 plus years. You've been walking your own spiritual path for coming on 30 years as a deep connection to your spirit. And I'd love to just explore from your perspective some of the key themes and differences that you have seen between organized religion versus walking a spiritual path. And then what I'd like to explore is perhaps some distortions again that sit within the spiritual communities, even the New Age spiritual communities, and be able to see how sometimes they're not too different to some of the organized religions that we can, sit in judgment of at times and that not support us either. So first of all, can we begin by looking at how you would position the differences between religion and walking a spiritual path?
I think it's a pretty big topic, Jo, but let's try and just bring it down a little bit. But, organized religion, the Catholic Church, the Jewish Church, the Church of England, all the different Christian churches, of course, which have millions of followers and have been around for a long time. They've been here for 2,500, 3,000 years. And basically my understanding is that journey is based on faith. Faith is a really big requisite on that journey, and also on community. There's a huge community in that of like-minded people coming together and sharing and asking for assistance, asking for support in some way, to their priest, to their God, believing in God, and following the dictates of leaders who lived a long time ago and perhaps may not be as relevant to life in 2024, 2025 as it was at the time of, say, Christ, or even, dare I say, Buddha, or the early Hindu religions. So faith is a prerequisite, because you have to have faith in something that was written when you weren't around, and that you are willing to follow the dictates and the guidance of that. We're talking about a Bible or a book, could be even the Mormon book, or so whatever, but you're following the dictates of organized religion, of something that's been stated as being a guide for life and for your spiritual growth. Because let's be honest, religion is about being spiritual, and it's just a different path. So when we talk about spirituality, such as New Age spirituality, it too requires faith. But there's spirituality that we are talking about is really about a journey of discovering self. And so we call on the spiritual seeker, who often is going from one thing to another to discover something of themselves. What are they seeking? Well, ultimately, I believe they're seeking a connection with God, with spirit, with source, whatever they want to call it. And they're finding ways on the path that will help them make that connection. So my real understanding is that connection, from a spiritual point of view, is coming from within them, from their deep connection, and not going to a priest or someone from organized religion that tells them how to find that. But when we say that, not so dissimilar, because on the spiritual path, you're going to go to a guru, or you're going to go to a teacher, or you're going to go to somebody, but you're going to use a tool that's going to help you find that as well. And both are going to be based on faith. So is there that much of a difference? I don't believe so. I just think it's different paths, different ways of discovering what we're all seeking is a deeper connection to spirit in some way.
How would you speak to the benefits and the shortfalls of seeking an intermediary to one's connection, to one's learning or experience of connection?
Well, my understanding is that we will all seek an intermediary, whether it be organized religion, a book such as the Bible, or whether it be a crystal, or whether it be a sound bath, or a teacher that's taking us on some sort of shaman journey, or ayahuasca, or any of those things. It's still the same thing. We're still going to something else to give us that connection. So once again, religion and spirituality are very similar. They're just doing different things. And I know a lot of people might argue about that or want to debate that, but they are. I mean, we're all seeking that connection, and you might call it God, or you might call it spirit, or you might call it source, whatever you want to call it, but it's still seeking that something else. The thing is that what we're all doing a lot when we're seeking is we're often seeking outside of ourselves. And this goes for religion as well as spirituality. We're seeking that connection outside of ourselves, whether it be in a church or a temple, whether it be in nature, whether it be in a sacred portal, whether it be in a sound bath. We are seeking it outside of ourselves. And I really believe you don't begin to walk the spiritual path until you stop seeking it outside of yourself, and you really understand that that connection is within you and will never be found outside of you.
So on that basis, would one of the most important things to start paying attention to be the consciousness that paying attention to the consciousness that is driving you to seek, whether it is through a crystal or a book or whatever that intermediary is. So what steps could you give our listeners to start becoming more aware and conscious to the energy with which they're seeking with, that might then help them become more willing to turn inward rather than outward?
Well, I think the first thing we need to say is that we're all going to be seekers on the path, and that's normal. And wherever you're seeking, you will find people who are on the spiritual path. They've probably been in churches, they've sought it there, they haven't found it, perhaps. They've gone to ashrams and they've sought it there, perhaps they've found it, perhaps they haven't. They've gone yoga and meditation. They're going out and experimenting with all the things that they're hoping will give them this connection. And ultimately, they won't until they decide to go within. But the seeking is important. It's part of the journey. And so not to judge that, not to think that that's not the path. It is the path, because it is for us to seek it and to find our way. And each of those tools and each step that we take will bring us closer the more we seek. But at some stage, you will feel the pull and the call to just stop seeking and to just come in and sit within, if you are a true seeker, that is, of course. And you will come within and really sit and make that connection. And we can talk about all the different ways you can make that connection. And it will be unique to you. It's very personal. It's a very personal thing. And what might work for me may not work for you, Jo. But when we make that connection and how we make that connection, will be different as well. But I feel that we need to understand that while we're seeking outside of ourselves, it's because that ego part of us believes that it is outside of us, that it couldn't possibly be found within us, because we are seeing ourselves as a physical being, a physical person, living through our mind and through our emotions, and not understanding that there is a greater part of us, and it is within us, it's not outside of us. And we can have that direct connection whenever we choose to come within. What prevents us from doing that? Well, there's a few things. Number one, as I said, faith is a big thing that's important. Faith that that spirit is within us, and that's the question, to really believe that. Secondly, it's really to understand that we often have fear of meeting that deep part of us. We're seeking it, but we fear it within ourselves. We seek it outside of ourselves, and that's a great distraction because it gives us lots of different experiences that are really fuel for the mind and for the ego, because the ego loves those experiences. Nothing better than maybe taking ayahuasca or going and sitting in a sound bath or sitting together with a group, chanting mantras, creating community, having those amazing experiences. The ego lives for that. And even in a church, singing, hymns together and praying together. It's a really deep experience that the ego really loves. But coming within means that you're on your own. You have to come within. You've got to meet that part of you on your own, because it is such a personal experience. And it's not experienced by being outside with others. You come within and meet that part of you within. And yes, maybe you're in a deep meditative group and you can do that, and that group will support you, but the experience that you're having is very personal. So if you have no faith in spirit and very little faith in self, then it's going to be very difficult to do that inner journey.
And that's, perhaps why people do seek other means, because they're seeking to cultivate the faith. Perhaps they're seeking to find faith.
That's right. And that journey is important. It's part of our initiations to seek. There's nothing wrong with seeking, and we spend probably half our spiritual journey doing that. But as I said, at some stage, we realize that we need to stop seeking and we need to come within. And as I said, that can be very fearful. It can be a distrustful place to be. We don't trust it. We don't trust ourselves. We're not trusting our spirit. We don't know what to do with that, because the journey of going within means that we have to meet many parts of ourselves that we have been happily avoiding for a long time in our seeking. Because while we're focused outward on all the outward experiences, we're actually not meeting those parts of ourselves very deeply. And we can meet the parts of ourselves that the ego is very happy to meet. But if we really want to go within, we're going to have to meet the parts of ourselves that the ego doesn't really want to meet. And so that can be a very scary experience as well. So it's a deep initiation of self. It really is that inner journey where we come to meet ourselves. And on that journey, we have many initiations. And as you know, when we begin to do that, we're learning all the time about self through our interactions, through our experiences. We begin to learn about self in a very open and clear way about who we really are. So definitely we will have questions and doubts about that at times. And so it's very good to have a teacher to support us through that. But always remembering that no teacher can do it for us. No priest can do it for you. No guru can do it for you. It's a personal experience that you have to do. And you do it on your own with your spirit. But someone can help you and support you on the path, but it is a journey for you to make.
And I think also, from personal experience, it meets this fear, which is an illusion, and it's also the paradox of, whilst we're the seeker, we're being satiated to a degree by the connection with others.
Definitely. Yes.
And the like-mindedness of others that are also on their journey of seeking. And so there's this feeling of not feeling alone. And then when you dive deeply, as you often say to me, it took me a while. But when I finally came off that diving board, when you dive deeply, you also have to meet the paradox of that part of you that's so scared to go inward because it feels like it's going to be completely alone. All of a sudden, I'm no longer with, this community tribe group that I'm traveling with, and I have to go inward. And you have to meet the fear of that part of you that thinks that that's going to be a very lonely, isolated experience, only to find the paradox is one that it is a greater experience than the one that you could possibly have in group with others. Not to diminish that, but it's a very different experience.
Very different, very different. Yes.
The other thing that in listening to you has brought my awareness to is just you speaking. Then I'm hearing all the different universal laws that are just weaving their way in and out of this whole spiritual seeker's experience.
Yes.
And the law of polarity is that whole seeker, the seeker of having to experience this polarity only to realize that actually, if you come inwards, then the oneness that we're seeking in order to come out of that polarity is within us. And I'd love, could you just weave in, you spoke to faith, and that's been such a pivotal part of my journey, because it's taken me a long time to realize that's what I've been seeking. And also, I always remember you saying that was something that you felt or know you were born with. And I went, that wasn't me. I can really differentiate between the consciousness that you spoke with when you said that. And I was just like, wow, I have to be really honest with myself. And it's not something I felt I was born with. Can you speak to that just for a moment? Like,
faith is pivotal for whether you're religious or spiritual, whatever, whether you're believing in, a God, the religious God, or whether you're believing in another energy that is the creation energy, however you want to call it. To really believe in any of it, you need faith, because you're being asked to believe in something you can't see or you can't touch necessarily from your mind's point of view. I would differ with that, of course, to say that you can see it, you can touch it, but you need to connect with it first. So it's the faith, and we often have this belief that this God, this source, this creation energy, whatever it is outside of us somewhere, and we're waiting for that to come and connect with us. But the thing is that it's always within us, it's always a part of us, it's part of who we are, and it's always there. But it just is waiting for us to connect with it. And it's only when you begin to connect with it that you can develop that faith, because you can't have faith in something that you don't believe in. So you need to develop that belief in whatever it is that you're seeking and really believe it exists. And often the seeker is searching for something that they don't know. They don't really know what they're searching for. They just feel there's something missing and I've got to go and find it. But to have faith, you have to make a choice about what are you seeking, and really understand what I'm seeking is this part of me, this beginning of me, I call it the source of me, the origin of me, which is not my physical self, it's not my ego self, it's the origin of me, the consciousness of me. That's what I'm seeking. But I fully believe in that, and I have ever since I can remember. So my understanding of that is I developed that in a past incarnation, is my assumption, and my understanding of it is it.
And that, yeah, that's exactly what I was just about to ask you. You know, would that mean then from your soul's ascension plan or ascension process that you have already in another lifetime come and really met that part of you and developed a connection to your origin, to your source, and that's being carried forward into this lifetime as a deep connection that has been cultivated, has been developed?
Definitely,
Versus,
yes, definitely. But let's not forget, I've disconnected from it in this lifetime too. And even though I still believed in it and had faith in it, I also chose to disconnect from it for many reasons, because of beliefs I had about it. So, but I never gave up on it. I just disconnected from it and lived through the ego and the mind. And so when I chose, I also had my time of seeking. And when I chose to stop seeking and come within, I had a deep trust, a deep faith in that. Not so much in myself, but certainly in my origin, in the spirit of me, in the spirit that's all around us, that I believe is the creation energy, let's call it, all around us, that others call God, source, or it doesn't matter what you call it. And I understand more and more, the deeper I go within that, the more I understand of that part that is connected to me, and that I'm connected to it. We are connected very deeply, and it's important to open your connection to that part of yourself, to that deep part of yourself. I mean, it's all around you, but it's also within you. And this is what we seek. It's what we seek in others. When we have relationships or whatever, we're seeking what we think is missing in us in someone else. And then we get terribly disappointed because we can't find it there. So then we'll go and find someone else we can find it in, and so it goes. And we seek it in churches and temples. We seek it, under a tree. We're seeking it, as I said, in ashrams, all over. But the thing is, we're just walking around, and if we just sat and took a few breaths and really opened our hearts to it, we'd understand it's right here. There's nowhere we need to go, but it's right here. But we need to understand the needs and desires of the ego, which can drive us to constantly seek. Because the ego self, as we go in to meet ourselves, we're meeting parts of that ego that actually need to be resolved or dissolved, because they will fight tooth and nail to keep us from that connection and keep us distracted outside ourselves. And we have to meet those parts of ourselves, and not meet them with judgment, but meet them with an embrace, with acceptance, and to really own those parts of ourselves and honor them and why they're there. It's a journey.
so
Big journey.
it is a journey. It is a journey. It's a huge, as you said, there's many initiations for the seeker on their path. What if you left our listeners with, let's say, 2 or 3 tips to support them to have perhaps greater discernment as they walk the seeker's path? What guidance would you give somebody that would help them sharpen their discernment on what they're connecting to as a means of seeking?
Well, I always say that when you've got the seeker and they're like the butterfly, they flit from one flower to another looking for the best pollen, and
Best honey.
Yeah, the best honey, the best pollen. So this is often what seekers are doing, and I see this often in students, and there's nothing wrong with that. But be conscious of where you're choosing to sit for a while. And usually that's with a group or with a teacher or with somebody offering something that your ego is very keen to experience for whatever reason. And usually what we're looking at experience is the promise that's being made. And often that promise is, we'll show you how to get there. You don't want to miss out. You need to come here because, if you don't come here with us, you'll miss something. And you're already missing something. So come and join us and we'll show you how to get there. And of course, this is what the seeker wants. They want someone to show them how to get there. But if that group person, whatever, is not showing you how to go within and how to meet that part of you within, but is constantly keeping your ego distracted, busy, enthralled in whatever way, believing that it has to keep going because there's something here that if it doesn't do this, it's going to miss out on something. If that's the excitement that's being created, then seriously, I really think you need to reconsider and be a little bit more discerning about where you're going. But once again, remember that every detour you take, no matter how short or long, is always going to teach you something. So there's no right or wrong on the spiritual path, but it doesn't have to be as difficult as what we make it, nor as complicated as what we make it. We often think we have to stand on our heads and we all have to drink herbal teas and we all have to chant 100 mantras and we all have to do this, hold 10 crystals in our hand, make sure we turn to the sun every morning, all this sort of thing, all these ceremonial practices, which are all beautiful, nothing wrong with them. But seriously, will they take you within to spirit? Most won't. Because they're simply tools that are very distracting for the ego. And coming home to spirit is asking you to come and sit within yourself. So any teacher that's helping you do that and to find your way there, to move past the fear, past the judgment, past the distraction, to go within yourself, and also is willing to acknowledge that this is your personal journey. They can support you, hold you, give you some guidelines, maybe give you a few tools, but it's up to you. You have to make the choice to make that dive. And they don't have a magic button. But if they're promising you that magic button, all I can suggest to you is be discerning about that, because there is no magic button.
I'm going to leave it there. There is no magic button. You are the button.
You are the button.
Press your own button.
Yes, that's exactly right. Yeah.
Oh, thank you again for your wisdom and your guidance. As we always do, we hope that it's inspires and brings something of that speaks deeply to our audience consciousness. So thank you for your time again.